Friends, I am doing this live, and I am doing this because it's very important that while India is facing a COVID situation, and in COVID last time in June, China did the Galwan Valley, and we had clashes there. And historically, also, when nations are dealing with epidemics, the other nations try to take advantage. It could be any nation. We have a puny Pakistan. It could get aggressive. We have China. US could do whatever it wants to, whatever it thinks in its best interest. So these are issues not concerning one country, but which is encircling India. But these are issues which concern India's national security broadly, the 360-degree perspective of what is happening in India national security and what we need to do in the Indian national security. If you are joining for the first time, I try to do these live so that I can see your questions and put it to the guests. So please subscribe to the channel, like it, and share it with your friends, because we will today try to discuss all encompassing way of what is in India's national security interest. And I am very happy because there is one person in India who can actually discuss such a broad topic, and that is Dr. Subramanian Swamy, and he is here. So thank you, Dr. Swamy, for coming. Dr. Swamy, so
Okay.
broadly, we are facing a COVID situation. It is an epidemic, but that will not stop other nations to act in their best interest or against India's interest. So, what is broadly the framework that you see right now? The situation India is vis-a-vis national security.
Well, you have given me a very saucy title, National Security 360 Degrees. And there are external national security threats, there are internal national security threats. And so both these are there, and they are very serious ones. And the question is, how do we deal with it? I mean, it's easy to criticize, but you must have a plan of your own, which should be placed before the government, which in my case I have done in a number of letters to the Prime Minister. But there's been just no action. In fact, some of them has been the exact opposite of the action I suggested. First is, what are the challenges? The second is, are there opportunities? If there are opportunities, what are they? And the third is, what are your constraints? Obviously, every country has a constraint. We also have a constraint. What are the real constraints? So I would say the first thing is, the challenges are to be, number one, how do you face it? What is the challenge? We have a challenge from the Chinese. We have a challenge from the Pakistanis, more in terms of internal subversion, sitting on our territory and then sending, jihadis across, causing civil disobedience, civil uprisings, and so on. Foreign money, forged currency notes, the power of Dawood Ibrahim over the Bombay cinema, and drugs to weaken you as human beings. So these are all very big threats, and they are existing, particularly in the urban cities, not in the rural place so much. That's even worse, because the urban city is more educated and therefore can articulate how to deal with it. So point number one is this. And the second is, in order to deal with this challenge, this first form of challenge, are you ready to go to war for it? Tighten your belts and go to war. Our ethos, you see, is that we don't hesitate to go to war. Rama didn't hesitate even 1 minute. The only thing he did was he sent Angat to see whether Sita would be freed by Ravan so that he doesn't have to kill him. But Ravan was in his ahankar, so therefore he didn't hesitate. He finished off thing. Of course, he had no other ambitions except to get Sita back. So one of their defectors, which is the Vibhishana, who is not really a defector because he was thrown out, by Ravan. He didn't come of his own violation. So he crowned him as the next king of Lanka, much to the anger of Lakshman. So therefore, we have never hesitated on war, but we give a chance. Similarly, in the case of Mahabharata, Krishna, knowing fully well that Duryodhana is drunk with power, for public consumption, why we must die for this war, he said, just give 5 villages and we'll go away. And Duryodhana said, no, not even the space on the tip of a needle. So war became inevitable and justified, and so we do go to war, but we try to work its justification as a last resort. So there's nothing in Indian psyche which says we won't go to war. We have been to war. Rana Pratap went to war. Shivaji went to war. The Vijayanagar went to war. The Cholas, Pandyas, the Ahom dynasty in Assam, Guru Gobind Singh in Maharaja Ranjit Singh, and we have a tradition, but our first preference is peace, and if it can be negotiated. Yeah.
Dr. Swamy, because you are talking on this general state of mind, and then but do you think we have had a Mahatma Gandhification of our mindset after independence, and the way it has been propagated as the biggest reason we got victory, or sometimes the sole reason we got victory once Congress came to power? They tried to build it like that. Do you think there is a Mahatma Gandhification of our mindset?
Unfair to Mahatma Gandhi to say that, because I'll tell you, it's a fault of other cowards who are hiding behind what Mahatma Gandhi says. What Mahatma Gandhi said very clearly is, I pick up weapons, the British are superior. We don't have weapons, and if we get all these weapons, we'll not be able to win. Subhash Chandra Bose is regarded and revered not because he brought us freedom through from military means. He showed courage, but he had to rely on those soldiers whom the Japanese gave him. He had to rely on the Japanese for weapons, and the Japanese didn't want him to grow big. He realized with Hitler also the same thing. The Hitler doesn't want to free the Indians. He wanted them as slaves. He thought them they were inferior. That's why he took a risk of his life and came through a submarine all the way to Singapore. So therefore, it was Gandhi who made the movement for freedom a mass movement, and it was not meant for post-Indian independence. Yes, he was very heartbroken that that partition took place. He couldn't keep his promise that it will be over his dead body, because both Patel and Jawaharlal Nehru decided there has to be partition. But before he died, he started reworking his strategy again. In Kashmir, for example, he was in favor of troops going and liberating it. When the Pakistanis, came across with their, dressed as ordinary tribals, but they were actually army people, and he supported it. So I would not go by that, but I would say that Nehru has made you into a coward, and Nehru was a coward. But what happened is the Russians, he was committed to Russians, probably because the Russians killed Subhash Chandra Bose, and that secret was a grip on him. And he went on. I mean, he made it as a principle that war he will not do. He went in 1962 because there was this Moraji Desai and Guzarilal Nanda and all the Congress leaders stood up Today there are no Congress leaders except the family, so they can't stand up. But there they openly in Parliament when one day Jawaharlal Nehru said, "Why are we fighting over Aksai chain? Not a blade of grass grows there." So Mahavir Tyagi got up and took off his Gandhi cap and said, "Not a blade of hair grows on my head and your head. Shall we cut off both our heads?" You see. So that kind of atmosphere, in fact, in my book on Himalayan challenge, you will see that Krishna Menon telling the Chinese, they see, if you don't pull out, then I will be blamed for having sold out India, and I'll be the first victim, and which he was. So therefore, this passiveness, Gandhi did it because he felt the British had a limited number of troops. They could not bring them in. And therefore, he could, non-violent was not a threat to them. They were not seeking them to be uprooted. They just wanted them to leave. So they would allow that. And he made it into a mass movement. Subhash Bose only scared the British only on one point, that he had infected the mind of the British Indian Army. And if you see the books written for almost 60, 70 years after 1857, especially because of 1857, the British writers say that the Indian Army or British Indian Army decides to revolt, pack up your bags and leave. Charan Singh brought me that book. I never thought that they would be so explicit. The example, if I may take a few minutes on it, the Battle of Plassey, 1957, Robert Clive won that battle in Murshidabad. Okay, and then he had had a march into the city. 5 lakh people assembled and threw rose petals on his path. So the book that Charan Singh gave me was written by Brishma. He said, I was amazed to see this. Supposing each of those 500,000 people had picked a stone and thrown it at the British army, everybody would have been killed. So the mind was the important thing. So today we have to see that that our mindset is we are ready for war. But are we? Have you dared to say, the Prime Minister, has he dared to say that the Chinese are aggressors in Ladakh? It's not a disputed land, because we signed in 1993 a line of actual control, where even if the land is disputed, but it will be, a part will be held by Chinese, part will be held by India. And Ladakh was totally Indian. Aksai chain went over to China. And they're temporarily, but it's something mutually agreed. They violated that, crossed the LAC, came and captured Dipsang. Are we ready to admit it? The channel you go very often to, Times Now, they even called the poor commander-in-chief, and that guy fudged his statement, but the statement was misinterpreted. And without naming me, the Times Now began attacking me for those who say that the Chinese have come into our Indian territory, must now apologize to the nation. It's now true that they have, and they are about to come for more. They are strengthening their positions. They are bringing in their troops. All this time we are giving them. So this mindset is not a Hindu mindset. The Hindu mindset includes the Sikh mindset, includes the Assami Ahom dynasty Hindu mindset, the South Indian mindset. All Hindu mindset was peace is first priority. If it doesn't, it's not possible, go to war. So that is what I would like to say in answer to your question.
Dr. Swamy, because I do not want to get into a debate on Mahatma Gandhi, it was just the mindset, because what you are very succinctly putting it across is the Mahatma Gandhi mindset was a strategy at the best time with the situation and resources we had. And we can have a separate topic or discuss that in democracy or in that situation, what does the best time or not. Because even if what you say is true, but what was then talk in history book under the Nehruvian governments was
Yeah.
peace at all costs. So maybe there was
Yeah.
a disparity between what was his strategy versus what
Yeah.
was taught to us even in 90s in school. But that's a debate for a separate day. Thank you for clarifying. What you think is that Mahatma Gandhi was a strategic non-violence, not a non-violence at every cost. But
Yeah.
now coming back to the main topic, as you said, for multiple reasons, we have a challenge and we face a 360-degree challenge. US, there has been a change of government. So let me start with US. What do you think under the, and because US with the change of government, it is not a bureaucracy like India, there are en masse changes where everything almost changes if the president changes. So what do you think under the current dispensation? What are their expectations from India? What are their frustrations with India? What are the opportunities? What are the challenges vis-a-vis US?
Well, I lived in the United States in a very premier position, that's as a professor at Harvard, interacting with the Americans in all issues, all departments, political science, such department strategy, all that. I know the American mind. American mind will not do anything for you unless you do something for them. They want to fight China, they can fight China on their own because there's no border with China. They have allies who are totally dependent on them and they know it. Australia, Japan, South Korea, see, Taiwan. So they will stand by them to the maximum. But even there in Vietnam, they just packed up the bags and left. Now they are packing their bags up in Afghanistan and leaving. They care a damn whether the Taliban will come and attack India or not. You are part of Quad, but you are behaving as if you are still non-aligned. This non-alignment is the utter, the most undiluted form of cowardice. What do you mean by non-aligned? See, in moments of crisis, there's no question of non-alignment. You have to take a stand. If you think that the Chinese are doing evil, you have to take a stand. I'm a great friend of China. I've been all these years, and I still admire, respect the Chinese people. But they have made a policy which is anti-Indian. So therefore, contrary to all the expectations of the fake IDs and Twitter wallahs and paid tweets and all, I am against it. The Chinese are not surprised because they always knew I was a nationalist. So you will find hardly any criticism of me in Chinese press, you see, despite my most, because they know that I am an Indian nationalist and I can't be expected to side with them in such a situation. Tomorrow there's a new leadership which comes like after Mao Zedong, Deng Xiaoping came, I suddenly became a hero for them, see. Because whatever they said about the lack of performance, economic performance of Mao Zedong, I had already written, for which I was condemned by all the leftists. But it suited Deng Xiaoping and used it. And that's how he rewarded me with that access to Kailash Mansarovar. So what I'm saying today to you is, you see, Americans think that this Modi is not dependable. Why is he sticking to this S-400 when we are ready to give him an equivalent one? They are opposing S-400 because S-400's electronics is all Chinese. The Chinese will hack into it. Now, S-400 has also been supplied to China, by the way. And they can, when your plane takes off with S-400 to fire missiles at other aircrafts, Chinese aircrafts, they will jam your S-400 and your plane will come crashing down. So they are saying that, all right, if you get S-400, how are you going to service it? Because this is a new equipment for you. So you will send the Russians or the Chinese will come, the Chinese for electronics, the Chinese will have to come. And then our top materials, advanced materials are with you, they will come and copy it. We can't allow it. So if you want to be part of our team, you can't be a part of that. So this non-alignment is part of the Nehru cowardice. I'm with everybody. You have heard the story of the bat and in Panchatantra, I think.
So
The
please
bat,
tell the audience.
the bat look, yeah, for the audience, I'll tell you. The bat looks like a bird because it has wings and it flies with the flapping of the wings. It looks like an animal because it looks like a rat. If you see the bat, minus the wing, it's an animal. So when there was a war between, according to Panchatantra, a war between the animals and the birds, the bat went to both sides and said, I'm just like you. To the bird, they said, see, I've got wings. I'm a part of yours. I'm on your side. And went to the animal side and said, see, I look like an animal, so I'm on your side. And then the bat was absent during the war. After the war, they came to a stalemate and then they made up. And then they said, where is this bat gone? So they went searching for it because they exchanged notes and said, what a fraud he is, let's catch him. That's why the bat never comes out during daytime and is always hanging upside down. That's the Panchatantra story. You're neither here nor there because you told both you're with them. You say you're with the Russians. You're inviting Xi Jinping to our country for the BRICS meeting in November. Our foreign minister, like a parrot, goes on saying we look forward to healthy exchanges with China. China is not in the mood for healthy exchanges. They have captured your territory. Get them out. This is the best time. Why? Because the terrain is in your favor. They have to come long distances. Over a period of time, the Chinese are now slowly getting support. They've got Nepal with them. They got Bhutan also now with them. They got Bangladesh with them. They got Burma with them. They have got Sri Lanka now with them, which I had literally put it into India's lap, you see. Now Sri Lankans have been so badly treated by us, they decided, okay, we have to pay back our money of the previous government. They kept telling me the previous government has run into a huge debt with China and we have no money to pay it. Please give, at least not give us that money, at least the money that we owe you, please put it on like you do for Adani, you reschedule it. So, but we refused. And we in fact spoke very in very condescending tone. So we have lost Sri Lanka. The Maldives have decided to go with America. They say not with India. So you are surrounded. Iran has also gone with China. Pakistan is now in China's pocket because they know now the Americans don't need them once they surrender to Taliban. So Taliban gets Afghanistan. The Chinese are already there like we Indians, but we Indians will have to come running. And so you're surrounded. So the Americans say this man doesn't understand India's national interests. You join us, you're all the way with us. So that is the core problem, that the Chinese have contempt for Modi. I'm very sorry to say this about our Prime Minister, but the public must know, because he hasn't said koi aaya nahi, koi gaya nahi, he has not contradicted. Please ask him to make a statement that the Chinese are sitting in Depsang. Even if they came during UPA period, that's not an excuse, because you met Xi Jinping 18 times 1-to-1 in all dramatic conditions of wearing veshti and angavastram and all that in South India, and on a jula in like Lord Krishna in Gujarat. How many times you have met him? And you mean this matter of Depsang didn't come at all? So there is an international consensus. India is a great country. So Americans want India because of its size, its numbers, and so on. But they say, how can we deal with this man? If I really spoke, I have not spoken because how much am I going to go and speak on this? Jaishankar's trip to America, 5 days he was there at this particular time. And what did he come back with? That the US will soon decide whether to give us vaccine or not. They're not going to give you unless you sign the Intellectual Property Act. And so this government doesn't want to annoy the Indians, but they don't want to have anything to do with him. That is something he has to understand. Just because they may make a nice, they are very good at the crafting speeches, where
Even
it
so,
looks
the
as if they're.
vaccine raw materials, it took almost 8 to 10 days, and it became a hue and cry in US that in a humanitarian crisis, you are not supplying the raw materials that they had to supply almost 8 to 10 days before they agreed to give what was very
Yeah.
basic and any nation would do for any
You
other nation.
remember the first statement of Biden was, we have to first look after our own people before we think of looking after you.
Yes,
So
that initial was that.
these are the blunt truths. Who's going to tell Modi this? None of our ministers, because he doesn't even consult them. None of the bureaucrats, because they never had it so good. What do they care? Any boss comes, they have to obey. So they obey him. And of course, you have Twitter crowd, fake IDs, who try to run down everybody. Most people get frightened. Only I enjoy it because I enjoy block, 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 block. See, every morning I sit down and block everybody who has obviously. So let's go into this. We are a very large country. We are the third largest GDP in the world. Not because of Modi, but it has been like that for the last 20 years. And our military people are real tough guys. You sent them without weapons to Galwan, and they had to do boxing. And yet 20 died, but they took at least 40 of theirs. In Pangong Lake, we crossed into, we went across only once, and that was see that go across. We went and captured that Kailash range, and our foreign minister says no, we have to give it up because we want to set a atmosphere for the Chinese to say, vacate. The Chinese, when asked about Dapsang, they said, "What do you mean? It's our territory. How are you asking us to?" They said, no, but it was agreed. So where it was the agreement? Where's the line? Please show us on the ground. So we have this essential problem that our present leadership lacks credibility internationally. And you cannot get it. The only way you earlier on you are new, you had this huge 1.36 billion people, and at the third largest GDP. At that time, before we brought it down, before the corona came, our growth rate had fallen to 3.1% GDP per year. And so there was this India, country of promise. All our Indians in the United States were performing so well in advanced fields like IT and medicine and so on. So Indians and they were very law abiding. So that's all frittered away. But at the same time, we have this huge potential. My suggestion would be, recognize, as long as the Chinese occupy your territory, as your enemy number one. Pakistan is not being worth considering enemy. In fact, Pakistan can be broken into four. Bakhtunistan, Baluchistan, Sindh, and the residual Punjab. Work for that. Offer the Americans, even now the Americans haven't left, although they said they will leave by 1st May. Tell the Americans we'll send 20,000 troops to 20,000 troops to Afghanistan to help you to stay there. They got 5,000 troops. He said, don't worry, we'll do it. And the Afghans will welcome you. The Americans are letting down the very people who trusted them to create a new Afghanistan. They got tired. They said, no, now I don't think we can fight the Taliban because you can't fight the Taliban. Well, it's not their fault. So we must fight the Taliban, because if I don't fight him in Afghanistan, I'll have to fight him in Punjab, because Pakistan is just a freeway for them. This is the position.
But Dr. Swamy, don't you think that US has to support India in the sense, as you said, China is becoming enemy number one, and the US has changed its position even under Biden. They are now going to investigate whether COVID was a lab leak or not. So, in the American public, there is growing awareness. I think primarily brought by President Trump. He may have lost the election, but he did put China as its enemy number one in public discourse. And slowly the Democrats are reaching that stage, because anybody sensible knows Russia is not a rival to US anymore. It is China which is the rival to US. So in that, but you do not see that playing well for India?
India, of course, but not the present dispensation. Why? Because the Americans are not people who just think of their interests, they also think of what they get out of it. If India is ready to give the Americans, all right, you land in Andaman Island, you refuel your boat ships there, you come to Lakshadweep, and we'll give you bases in Tezpur. Are you ready to do that? Japan is ready to do that. South Korea is ready to do that. Taiwan is ready to do that. Japan is ready to do that. I mean, Australia is ready to do that. Mauritius is ready to do that. Americans have some issues with Rajapaksa, so they won't come, even if Rajapaksa offered it. Okay, so he has no alternative. The Burmese have already, you had foothold through that Yuan Chong Chi or whatever her name is, but she is now a prisoner. The army is totally Chinese. So where? Nepal, you have lost. You let the Christians let loose, and now the Chinese have come in, and we don't know whom to support in China, in Nepal. Bhutan has very clearly told us, now you see, we have to make up with China, so they want a road from Sikkim border, the Nathula Pass, all the way to Bagdogra. Imagine, China will come to the border at Bagdogra. Right now, the Chinese don't have a border with India in the Bhutan area. Now the Chinese, they have allowed the Chinese to build that. That whole fight that we had was because of that. So, to appreciate India, China, United States always appreciate India. They offered you the UN Security Council veto holding chair instead of China. What did Jawaharlal Nehru do? He did what all Americans think and only an idiot would do. He said, no, this chair belongs to China. Can you believe it? What did you do with Tibet? Sardar Patel wrote to Jawaharlal Nehru, please see that even if you have to give up Tibet, that they must first agree to the border. McMahon Line may have been drawn by the Britishers, or by a Britisher, because the Britishers didn't support it. He did it on his own. But the Chinese have agreed to the same McMahon Line with Burma, because he drew it Burma was part of India when he drew it, 1911 or 1913. And so they have agreed with that, but they won't agree with us. So I'm telling you, how can they, what are we going to give the Americans? You want their weapons? Are you ready to pay for it? You can't pay for it. I mean, you can pay for some of it, but not their advanced thing. If I want F-35 aeroplane, which is the most first-class aeroplane in the whole world, they won't. Look at Israel. It supported you so much. Did you support them this time? Did you support the UN resolution which the Americans moved to declare Hamas as a terrorist group, which it is? We voted against it. And then you say, no, we are non-aligned. We didn't take either side. What do you mean? Is there a third ground for this? Either you are against Hitler or you are for Hitler. There can't be a third. Today you are either for Chinese or you are against Chinese. There's no middle ground. So that is the problem. The Americans, yes, they want India, they use, but provided they get something for it, they're ready to give you everything that we need, but they must get something too. And what is that something? One of them is Afghanistan. Other is to agree to go and defend American interests in other places, which are also our interests. Fighting Burma, for example, is in our interest. I mean, fighting for the people of Burma is our interest. So when you look at it all, see, today, if you want to really hurt the Chinese, you make a military pact with Indonesia, which the Americans help you. Sit on either side of the Malacca Strait with all the battleships that the Americans give you, and say to the Chinese, you can't cross it unless you vacate our territory. The Chinese will be forced to vacate our territory because all the trade will stop. All the trade to European countries, African countries, Middle Eastern countries, all through Malacca Strait. And we got Andaman Island there, they've got the Sumatra on the other side, and we can block it. Why don't we do it? Indonesians won't do it unless they know the Americans are on our side. The Americans may do for atmospherics anything. In fact, even Trump was all atmospherics. Concretely, there's nothing much he did, which Bush didn't do earlier.
Dr. Swamy, that is the whole problem. And when I started by Gandhification of the mindset in Israel now. What could be the problem for I can understand a Congress government not supporting Israel. That is understandable. Whether we like it or not, their vote bank politics and their interests are, they have to win elections, end of the day. And most political parties will not go against what they think will make them lose the election. But what is the harm in BJP? BJP is anyways, it does not affect its vote bank. It gets a friend. It is a very strong friend with its unparalleled intelligence network in the world and unparalleled influence in countries you have to be close to, like United States of America. So why do you think this? We did not, and then Israel thanked 25 nations did not thank India. And those facts,
he didn't thank her.
You can't run away from those facts. You can say this government is good or that government is good, but that is a fact. How does Israel see you? It did not thank you when it did thank almost 20 nations. So what was the inhibition or the reasons a government like BJP will not do it? Because they have nothing to lose.
First of all, what do you mean by government of BJP?
Government led by BJP, the political party in power.
Not led by BJP. It's led by Modi. Even Amit Shah is not a leader. He's just a, loyal Man Friday of Modi. Does Modi consult anybody? Has the national executive been consulted? The last 3 years, there's been no meeting of the national executive. Although the rule is every 4 months it has to meet. Party constitution. Does he or even pick up the phone and ask people? He's got bureaucrats. The budget is prepared in PMO and then Nirmala Sitaraman just signs. That's why she makes bloomers like health budget has gone up by 137%. You know about that scandal? It's another arena. The question basically is this. BJP, yes, but BJP, there's no interference. He doesn't want help. They say, take care. The ministers are not, they said, अपना self-respect को maintain करना, हम अपना काम जो है वो करेंगे. I mean, all these chota-mota juniors, They can't be called ministers in the true sense of the word. A minister who can play a role is someone who has his own independent standing, and he must have a spine with it. I want to mention who has a spine and who doesn't have a spine. If you have a spine, you will be out of the picture. So in this system, why blame BJP? Can the BJP party in Bengal take responsibility for losing the election?
Swami, I
Did
wasn't
any?
blaming BJP. I was wondering why a government led by BJP not support Israel, which, as you said, and I agree with you there, but we cannot be non-aligned in perpetuity. You have to choose sides, whichever side you think that is for
No, it's a
strategy.
time of war. There's no question of non-alignment in time of war.
As I said, which side you choose can be a question of strategic thinkers and what is in best interest, and army, military, navy, intelligence, whatever. But choosing sides is
No,
almost
you're saying this is against our ideology, not support.
ideology and
Is
national
that what you're
interest.
saying?
Yeah,
All
as
right.
I said,
Tell me one thing. Is taking over temples in Uttarakhand our ideology? Had I not got to court, these people wouldn't have been forced to, say, okay, we are giving it up. Because it's now the main matter. The main matter I have won, that all the treasury will not be in the hands of the Uttarakhand government. In the High Court, I won that. But I don't want them to even administer the paychecks of the priests. So therefore, it's in the Supreme Court, and I'll win that there because I've already won other cases, similar cases in Tamil Nadu on that, and the Supreme Court judgments are applicable. So the question is, you say BJP ideology. Is the present Narendra Modi government following BJP ideology in crucial matters? What about Ram Setu? Why haven't you declared it as a national heritage monument? What is your problem? Ram Mandir also, they opposed it. The Guru Murthy Narendra Modi draft, which was sent to the Supreme Court, cleared by the the Solicitor General, Mr. Tushar Mehta, was that please allow us, this is when the case was going on, please allow us to hand over the land nationalized by Narasimha Rao back to the original owners. You would have had 67 different owners. No, I'm sorry, 67 acres, but you would have had 200 owners. And then if you had won the case, you will have to start negotiating again for the land with them. Today you have got a vast amount of 67 acres under the government. You don't have to ask anybody.
Okay, Swami, Ram Mandir we have discussed enough times, and these are matter of records. I just wanted to bring
I said don't talk about BJP and ideology. It's a style of functioning of Mr. Modi. We have selected him, so therefore our people are, we believe in stability. We don't want to rock the boat. So,
sir, but
therefore,
boat being rocky, I'll take the last question because we reached 45 minutes. What do you think in the short to mid-term India can do to improve our national security or balance it out?
Can do or will do?
Will do.
That's important. I can tell you many things you can do to knock the hell out of the Chinese, okay? But we'll not do. You can't prevent Chinese companies from, working here in electronics. And they have boasted that the Bombay power breakdown was done by us. Be careful in the future. Now, artificial intelligence. Now, of course, the Americans are saying that this is all, did we not also participate in the research? I have raised it in the committee, and the committee agreed, the Ministry of Health agreed. They said they didn't consult us. The principal scientific advisor to the Prime Minister decided it. And the Atomic Energy Commission also agreed. What has Atomic Energy Commission got to do with bat research? And we allowed the Chinese scholars, I mean, the Chinese investigate scientists to come to Nagaland and investigate the bats there on their bats, and took away all the samples back to Wuhan. And we also went like servants there, and we were watching the thing. Make the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, which participated as a partner without taking FCRA permission. My God, what halla gulla they do for NGOs not following, according to the FCRA regulations. No permission. We participated. So how you can now talk about the Chinese Wuhan? The Americans can, but we can't, because the Americans are brazen. They said you took our money, and so we have a right to ask you. But we took the Chinese money, by the way. We didn't give them money.
Well, Dr. Swamy, you have put out all the various challenges before India, and I hope that India reacts to it in a strong manner, because we need to, because the reality is, and the latest, I'll just put the last one, Colombo, 680 acres in the capital, Sri Lankan government has basically made it Chinese territory with the new law they have passed.
Yeah.
They passed some.
Otherwise, they would be. Otherwise, see. Look, on one hand, the Americans are pursuing them in the International Court of Justice, and also in that Human Rights Council, saying that you are guilty of genocide of Tamils, which is all nonsense. If there's anybody guilty of genocide of Tamils, it is the LTT. I know it. I myself was put on a hit list. Of course, I have conveyed back to Mr. Prabhakaran that you are also on my hit list. Let's see who goes first. So, and he did go first. So now the the question is this: the Sri Lankan government is between a hard and a rock place. What are they going to do? You don't help them. All they're asking is that all the loans that we took by the previous government, not by their government. You see, you just reschedule it. We are not asking you to, write it off. Didn't do it, and the Americans are after them. They want to put them on a genocide trial. Okay, because the Americans want a foothold in Sri Lanka through the Tamils. And they're having jihadi problems. You know that one church was blown up by the jihadis, the Islamic terror, and some of them are going from India. That Tawhid Jahid or something, I don't know exact, which is an organization in Chennai, in Coimbatore. They went and did the explosion in Sri Lanka. So you surrounded them completely. And then the Chinese say, give our money. If you don't like us, give us our money back. And they can do a lot of things, damage to Sri Lanka all over the world, the Chinese, if you don't pay them back. So they said, okay, then take what they want. I don't blame Rajapaksa at all.
Dr. Swamy, as we said, a very interesting discussion, and we really exceeded the time. But thank you for coming, because the topic is so big and so weighty, and we need to balance our interest. Everybody was watching, and I hope you all enjoyed the perspective. Please share it with your friends so that they understand the dimensions of the challenge. And if you are watching for the first time, somebody is saying love from Nepal, always. And if you are watching for the first time, please subscribe to the channel. And I will invite Dr. Swamy again, maybe whenever his schedule permits, maybe after 2-3 weeks, and we will discuss another very important and interesting topic. Thank you, Dr. Swamy, for doing this.
There's no schedule as far as you're concerned. No? You can ask me anytime.
Thank you.
You've done so much good work for me in the legal field. I can't forget it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay.